Just enjoying the music right now. We got 5 minutes. Just enjoying the music right now. We got 5 minutes. We about to get started. 3 minutes or so. Can y'all hear me? Jump on the Zoom. Jump on the Zoom. Jump on the YouTube. You should still be able to find the link on my page. Jump on the YouTube if you want to see the videos. It's going to be real short today. I'm not going to keep y'all here till midnight or tomorrow morning. Real short. Two minutes. Still practicing. Razor Ray. I don't know if that Instacaz 88, how you say it. Robin Branch, what up? What up? What's good, Soph? Again, I got the YouTube link to jump into YouTube. I'm only gonna really show like 2 videos. It's gonna be really short. Jump on into YouTube. Jump on in YouTube. Link should be on the page. I want to make sure the sound for YouTube is all right. They can hear me. It is 6 o'clock. Do you know where your mind is? Australia, what up? Afternoon. Jump into YouTube, y'all. I'm really trying to see if this YouTube thing is worth me doing. Okay, we got a few people watching. Hit that chat and let me know that you can hear me all right in there. In here, in there, in here, in there. I promise I will not keep you here long today. This shouldn't be private. Always learning something on this. I'm trying to tell y'all. One day I'll know how to rock it. This should not, it's set, I don't know, we'll figure it out. Whatever, all I know is that this should go up on the YouTube channel so people can go back and put comments or whatever, but until I figure out how to really navigate this stuff. I'm not a tech dude. There's no team here today. There is just me. All right. Let's cut this music down before they have a fit. And be like, that ain't your music. It's not my music. Well, I'm not selling it. Just got it as background. That is all right. We just got it on as background. All right, what up, people? So, whether you're on Instagram, whether you're on YouTube, how's the music sound? Can you hear it? Is it too loud? Is it too low? Try to keep it down so they don't have a fit about me having this in here. Turn it down nice and low. All right, what up, peoples? Let's do something here. Okay, so here's the deal. Many of you have been following me for since 2020, when I really started doing a bunch of online stuff. And if you've been keeping up a bit, it's low, just background, cool. If you've been keeping up, recently I went to check out this documentary and I did a little commentary on that's up on YouTube now, and it's generating some interesting conversations, which I'm all about. And if you have any opinions, go in there, check it out, and throw your 2 cents in the game. But I'm really amazed at this idea that people are having concerning Black culture in America. Not, I'm trying to understand their framing, because what it sounds like to me is that, and particularly to this FBA group, the individuals that I've been in some sort of dialogue with, it sounds like either they don't believe the transatlantic slave trade happened, or they believe that people from the continent did not bring their culture with them. Brother, bravo. So is that, my nails are dirty. Either they don't believe the transatlantic slave trade happened, or they believe people somehow misplaced their cultural practices. Because I don't understand how we're not tethered to that. So I have never, and those of you that have been following me, I have never at one time said that gospel and blues and jazz and funk and soul and hip hop and all this stuff wasn't created here. Yes, all of that stuff was created here by Black folk in this country. That does not negate the fact that our cultural practices are tethered to African sensibilities, rituals, traditions, musical sensibilities, so on and so forth. And it's like, these, where do you think the people came from? They didn't just spring up out of the dirt. They were brought here. And wherever you go, you take your cultural practice with us. I cannot believe I'm having this kind of a conversation in 2024. It's ridiculous. And so there's been some sharing, there's been some ideas, some perspectives. And to be honest with you, the conversations that I've been in, I think we're saying the same thing. We're just coming from it through two different lenses. And, evidence is always shown. I'm going to back up whatever I'm bringing in. And by backing up, what I'm saying is I'm going to bring in other scholarly work that supports what I'm saying. Some of the cats is, they got language, but I'm like, where's the support? One person is like throwing some ideas of where to look, but I'm throwing a ton. So, and then the idea is suggesting that there is no research in this, plenty of research. So I'm gonna share a couple of things with you. And one is from this book I had mentioned before, Africanisms in American Culture, right? I'm gonna read a couple of things from a couple of different books so that they're in conversation with one another. And then I'm gonna specifically talk about, and I'm not gonna go in depth. I'm not gonna keep y'all here. I'm gonna try to keep this under 30 minutes. So I gotta get rolling. And I read slow, so bear with me. Boom. All right. These are some books that you should pick up that, if you're interested in, that get specific on African retentions in American culture, right? One book is Folk Beliefs of the Southern Negro It's 1926. Newbell Puckett, Puckett. This is the first book. This is the first anthropological study to examine African carryovers, right? Found in southern societies, where else? Where people were taken. So check that out. You have other books that are talking about African carryovers in American society. Carter G. Woodson, W.E.B. Du Bois, The African Background Outlined. It's 1936, right? The African Background Outline. Excuse me. You have that's Woodson, that first one. Du Bois' book is Black Folk Then and Now. So check those out. You have Guy Johnson and his book Drum and Shadows. Most of these books are at my office, but Drum and Shadows is right here, so you can see this. This is Drum and Shadows, all right? Really dope. A lot of interviews with like individuals of the South, and so like you'll see when you go through this book, you will see images of individuals that were spoken to, and it really gives you people's names and gives you really the stories of who was being spoken to and where. So again, that is Guy Johnson, Drum and Shadows. You have Lorenz Turner, Africanisms in the Gullah Dialect. It's 1949. You have Norma Whitten and John, I'm not sure I pronounce his last name. Pronunciation is not my strong suit, but SZWED. Afro-American Anthropology, 1970. You have Sidney W. Mitz and Richard Price, An Anthropological Approach to the Afro-American Past, A Caribbean Perspective, also 1976. What They Were Missing in Their Book, you can find in Peter Wood's book, Black Majority, 1974. You have Lawrence W. Levine, Black Culture and Black Consciousness. I actually have that. Black Culture and Black Consciousness. Looks like this. Again, another really dope book. Breaks a lot of stuff down. So, it's having these conversations with people who I don't know what they're reading. I don't know whether they believe what they're reading or not, but these are some things that people can gravitate to get some other information. You have The Slave Community, Plantation Life in the Antebellum South. This is by John W. Blasingames. Winifred Vass, The Bantu-Speaking Heritage of the United States, 1979. Like I said, most of my books are at my office. What else we got here? Definitely Robert Farris Thompson's Flash of the Spirit. He also has The Four Moments of the Sun, Flash of the Spirit. Flash of the Spirit is this book here. And I know a lot of you, is academics that follow me here and whatnot, and they have some of these, but then some of you that are not into this area of it, this should be really helpful. If you find yourself in these types of conversations that are people are not understanding the connection, or you yourself just want to understand a little bit more of the research behind how what Black folk in America are doing are connected. There's a couple other books here. Down by the Riverside, South Carolina Slave Community. This is by Charles Joyner. It's looking at Gullah life. Sterling Stuckey, Slave Culture, Nationalist Theory, and the Foundation of Black America, which is really funny because those cats call themselves FBA. And so here you go. Books from 1987. Nationalist Theory and the Foundations of Black America. Explore and resolve one of the most perplexing problems in African American culture, the origin of the ring shout, right? But I think the people that follow this FBA ideology, they're gonna read this and really learn. Like, it didn't just start. It's not that things weren't created here by us, but a lot of that fundamental principles, and I'm gonna talk about them in a second, go further back. Here's one: a peculiar people, slave religion, and community culture among the Gullahs, 88. Last one: the Gullah people and their African heritage. This is by William S. Pulitzer. The other book I just mentioned, The Peculiar People, Slave Religion and Community Culture Among the Gullahs, is by Margaret Washington. And yeah, check those out. Check those out. A couple things I want to also share from this particular book. One of the things that was mentioned in the comments was talking about hip hop, or the word hip. And somebody was trying to tell me their research in the hip, or somebody else's research they were mentioning. And I was sharing with them David Dalby and John Leland's research. And David Dalby identified certain early linguistic retentions among a group of Wolof-speaking people. And Wolof-speaking people were, and I'll probably find a passage in here to connect with that, were most often the Africans who were enslaved but taken into the house. So being some of the first people to be in contact language-wise with European languages and vice versa. So the influence of Wolof on Europeans on Wolof was some of the first to happen. But David Dalby goes on to talk about other influences from other words, linguistic retentions, including such words as okay, like okay, bogus, boogie woogie, bug, John, phony, yam, guy, honky, dig, fuse, jam, jamboree, hip pie, and mumbo jumbo. These are words that come from the continent that show up here. One other thing I want to speaking to the Wolof. There's a section in here. Actually, I want to speak to two things, because two things that came up in that comment section, or in the talks, was talking about Angolans. I've mentioned this before, and I think I might have deleted that talk, but I kind of chopped it up. You'll find it back up soon. But so this is the early transatlantic slave trade. Between 1650 and 1700, as a result of political disturbances in Senegambia, the dominant group of Africans imported to South Carolina were from Guinea. This goes to when I'm talking about the Charleston and its origins. Talking about most were Wolofs and other Senegambians. The Wolof were the largest group of Africans to come to the American colonies in the 17th century, and were predominantly house servants or indentured servants. Right, so that's, again, at close proximity. Something else that, thinking about the drum and the drum retention, I don't even understand how somebody could begin to talk about hip hop and not talk about the retentions, that the significance of the drum. Earl Palmer, who was one of James Brown's drummers, was from New Orleans and has spoken before his transition, had spoken about the roots of New Orleans drumming having influence from Africa. So if we're going to say the significance of James Brown and say the significance of the drum did not come from America. Polyrhythms don't come from America. So again, I'm a little bit at a loss at what this argument is that we're not connected to the continent. We are, and that doesn't mean that we haven't created anything new here, but what we have created here is still connected through. So just read a little bit of this in terms of the Angolans that were brought here, and I had mentioned why they had stopped bringing them for a time. Angolans in the 18th century slave trade. By the 1700s, Angolans were the largest African group being brought to South Carolina. Peter Wood has found documents showing that during the 5-year period between 1735 and 1740, 70% of all incoming Africans were Bantu in origin and came from the Angolan region. Out of a total importation of 11,562 Africans, 8,045 were from Angola. In addition, 705 Africans, 6% of the total, were brought into South Carolina from Gambia. This larger number from Angola may have been one reason why Africans revolted and killed whites while trying to escape to Spanish Florida in 1739. That is 1739 is the Stono Rebellion, where it is said that Angolan Jimmy, we don't know if Jimmy's his real name, but he's from Angola, and Angolan Jimmy started this rebellion. 2 shopkeepers were killed, and they used the drumming to announce what was going on because, again, the drums talk. And so you can, if you get this book, you can read all of this. And this goes into dances, it goes into language, it goes into food. It talks about a lot of things that are of the African retention here in this country. So that's one thing I wanted to throw at you. Let me see, what did I say? I want to go to 31. What time is it? Ooh. Okay, I'm going to keep it under an hour because I still got to talk about the jazz stuff. But this is short. I'm not reading much from here. Oh, so this is African Rhythms and African Sensibility. This is by John Miller Chernoff. Anthropological work as well. One of the things I think is a beautiful thing is said in here is the best way to begin to appreciate other cultures' music is to try and understand the people who make it and its place in their society, right? We try to understand the music of a different culture or historical period. When we try to understand the music of a different culture or historical period, we must be prepared to open our minds not only to the certainty that people will have different standards of judging music quality, but also to the possibility that they may have an entirely different conception of what music is. So again, being open-minded to understanding and what I'm finding or seeming like some of the conversations online, particularly about my comments around the film, a lot of closed-mindedness and a lot of definitive statements that you can really pick apart. And so one of the things I'm going to talk about is hand clapping. Again, something that's coming out of the African culture. Hand clapping was so big, and it's part of what brings the polyrhythms in America, especially when you didn't have the drum in certain areas. But even when you did have the drum, hand clapping is still a part of African tradition, and it provides polyrhythms. So the research in this book is saying, for instance, several authorities cite hand clapping as the most prevalent means of musical expression in Africa, because they do not want to distinguish the audience from the musicians, right? So there is no, you are a participant in the when the event is happening. It is not you watch us do a thing. No, you're a part of this. But in hand clapping is where they make or have people participate, but it's also a way, what I'm gonna show you in gospel music, how we see that polyrhythmic retention coming from the drum that you would normally find in the drum that you will see in in the church and in music. I thought there was something else, but I'll come back and see if it is. And so lastly, and then we get into it. Lastly, and I hope I ain't boring y'all, but we have to understand this stuff. And I might mess some of these names up. Please forgive me. All right, so again, talking about retention, right? African retention. What you have as what you hold in your cultural identity does not diminish. What was the name of the book? The book I was just reading from is Africanisms in American Culture. I believe that was in the early 80s. Or actually, that might be 2004. That's by John Holloway, or sorry, Joseph Holloway. And so this one is Afro-Latin America, 1800 to 2000. Again, understanding this relationship of African people being taken off the continent to the southern islands and then coming here. I do not understand how these people are in 2024 are not, they don't know this. But some people don't know it. So, okay. So listening to this, understand the narrative that I was brought up in school, in grade school, was like that Africans were kidnapped or enslaved or what have you, and that they were denied their culture. You can't deny anybody their culture. Again, you may not, if this tree is the tree in your country where you make the traditional drum from, and then you come here or are brought here and they don't have that tree, but then you just make it out of that tree, right? So you don't forget how to make a drum. You don't forget how to cook the food that you've been cooking in another continent. You don't suddenly move from Peru to Europe and forget everything that you knew in Peru. Like, these people, I'm trying to tell you, it's quite fascinating. So in ways of undergirding your culture, especially being in a forced situation, and now survival tactics have to come in. And so how do you navigate and negotiate your cultural identity when you're under these circumstances? So slave acceptance of Christianity did not necessarily imply their abandonment of African religion. While Liberian Catholicism demanded rigid, orthodox, and absolute monopoly for its gods and rituals, and the complete rejection of all other religions, African religions, except for Islam, required no such exclusivity. To the contrary, most African sects had evolved and developed over the centuries through an extended process of exchanging gods and rituals with each other, usually as a result of commercial contact or military conquest. The process of, sorry, I lost my space. Where? Okay, so I think I was here. This continued in the New World as slaves added Christian saints and deities to African pantheons and even invested them with the attributes of African gods. Thus, in Brazil, for example, Yoruba slaves from West Africa saw in Jesus qualities similar to those of, and I'm gonna mess this name up, forgive me, because I'm still trying to study my Orisha's names. But Ashula, I might be accenting that on the wrong letter. Ashula, I think. But his embodiment of the sun, this Orisha is the embodiment of the sun and sky, and revered both figures, Jesus and the Orisha, as powerful sky lords. The Virgin Mary they liken to Yemaya or Oshun, and this is Orisha of the sea and fresh water, respectively. And so you can see, like, they didn't lose their cultural practice. They see this that's being forced upon them, and they liken it to their own thing as a survival tactic. You flow in this way, but you hold on to that, because one of the things I was saying, when you look at, when I spoke at my mother's church, when you look at baptisms, particularly in black churches, adorned in white, go down to the water, dipped in the water, right? The water is Yemaya. White is Obatala. And there's a marriage between those two in the Orishas. So you're honoring Yoruba traditions by bringing those two ideas and concepts together, even though the people in the church may not even know that. They don't know why they're wearing white, and they don't know why they're going down to the water. Or over time, they might have been taught one thing and forgot about what undergird from their own cultural identity. And so you lose stuff like that. These things do happen over time, that you forget, that you do lose sight of where it came from. But when you do the research, you find out, oh, that's what that was. That's where that was coming from. So again, nothing is being lost. It is being retained. What might be lost is the why. We got the what, but you have to know why. And a lot of times we lose the why. Is like I mentioned, a ring shout. The reason that you go to, particularly in black churches, the reason you go and you see the senior usher board and they kind of like going down the aisle with this little two-step thing, that's a ring shout. It's just done linearly. That's it. It's not done in a circle. But that two-step, again, is part of getting around Catholicism, getting around the church saying that crossing your feet was dancing and you wasn't supposed to dance. So then you get a shuffling of the feet. So it's just there. I got excused. I live across the street from fire station. So it's just there. And when you do a little bit of digging, you find it. Now, last thing, and then we out of here. See, I'm kind of keeping it short. I'm gonna see if I can bring this up on here. Now, again, if you're in YouTube, you're gonna be able to see this. If you're not in YouTube, you're gonna be able to hear it. So let's bring this up. Bring up two of these. And this first thing is, and I played this for some of you before, and this is dealing with clapping. So, right, and once you remove the drum, and again, the drums were not removed all over the South. The drums were specifically removed in the Carolinas. This is where the Stono Rebellion happened in 1739, 1740, the Negro Act. I talked about this the other day. And so you have the removal of the drums there. But then pat clapping is already something that we do. And so then that's just added in even more. And then what becomes known as ham bone, which has a relation to Senegambian pat from the Jolo people. And you can't really see my legs, but you can hear that, or even all of that kind of stuff. So that takes on this whole thing. And so in place of the drum, when you hear, this is Staple Singers, and some of you have been with me and y'all seen me use this clip before when I talk about from gospel to Beyonce. You hear Pops playing a guitar, but you don't see a drum. And so what takes the place of the drum and the polyrhythms of the drum is the clapping. And this is particular in church. That was something I wanted to read, something in church. So let me bring this up. Only got two clips, this one and another one. And let me stop this music. And you should all see this. So
yonder come little David, said I, with his rock and sling, said I don't want to
just guitar and vocal.
meet him.
The emotions in the melody.
He's a dangerous man. Set out serpent.
I want y'all to listen to the clapping. Actually, you're going to hear the polyrhythm as you hear in church.
Talk about little
Must be that.
David. Can't sit down. Sit down. Sit down. Sit down. I can't sit down. Sit down. Oh, I can't sit down. Sit down. Sit down. I can't sit down. I just got to heaven and I can't sit down. Sit down. Sit down. I can't sit down. Oh, I can't sit down. Sit down. Sit down. I can't sit down. I just got to heaven and I can't sit down. Since you can watch the sun, see how steady she runs. Don't let it catch you if you were done.
So you talking about these different rhythms coming out of this. You talking about these different rhythms and these polyrhythms between each individual. If you think of each individual clapping as they have a drum, it all comes together in the ensemble. But Europeans didn't like polyrhythmic music, but they thought it was noise when they went to Africa. Their journeys to Africa, whether on the slave trade or before the transatlantic slave trade, when people were exchanging goods. You hear this, and that's part of the retention. So, I don't understand how people are like, there's no connection, or maybe I'm misunderstanding what they're saying, that there's no connection. The African diaspora has nothing to do with Black culture in America. And I'm like, without it, it wouldn't be a Black culture without, because where do you think we came from? So, but again, we're talking about gospel music a bit, and a couple of things I want to point out in the music and in the phrasing and in the structure. So I want y'all to look up. Y'all gonna have to do a little bit of research. I don't want to give y'all everything. Y'all do the work too. So look up, for those of you who are not familiar with this, look up musical structures, right? In terms of if a song is ABAB or AABA or AAB, you can Google search and just put those things in, put something in like, what is the rhyme structure of blues or something like that, or what is the musical structure of blues, or then just put in AABA or AAAA or whatever the situation is. Just put that stuff and start looking for that. Yes, I'm saying polyrhythms. Yes, polyrhythm. Polycentrism we usually see in the movement, having command of the body, where movement doesn't have to start in one fixed center. That movement can be initiated from any part of the body, while this arm could be having a wave that's going out and this one could be like popping or whatever. It's like my neck can be rolling this way while everything is just doing something different, because I can have multiple centers over my body where the movement is starting. Polyrhythms is really dealing with the musical structure, but in the movement practice, that is the ability to assign different rhythmic structures in the song to different parts of the body. So again, my feet might be doing footwork that's attached to a piano or a sax, while the torso becomes the rhythm section. Well, because the appendages are just the illusion of rhythm. But I can follow the flutes and be kind of lofty and light. I can also follow, if I choose, in the scale in the music, so that anything that is light or lofty, like a flute, wind instruments, I can make that soft and floaty or whatever. But anything that's hard, like drums or whatever, the reason I get heavy is because maybe the music just went down scale. Or maybe I intentionally go up scale even though the beat is dropping, just to have that juxtaposition, that binary. So yeah, it's you're playing with all these different things, but polyrhythm did not start in America. So again, if they might be watching, these cats who are in this FBA thing, it's like, I don't know where you thought polyrhythm start, but they certainly didn't start here, and our music is full of it. But to the what time was it? To the rhyme, I got 20 minutes to do this. To the rhyme, to gospel is, I'll do the quick and dirty for the gospel. So we're talking about gospel music. I wanted to bring something. What book was I tinkering in with this? I'm trying to think. It's not coming to me right now. But when the ring shout started here in America, and the ring shout's not from here, the ring shout goes all the way back to Angola as well. But when the ring shout to the Kikongo, when the ring shout was developing here, the ring shout was a way for Africans to cultivate community, right, through this. So they were creating songs, creating lyrics to European hymns, right? There was a focus on psalmody and like psalms, right? So I have this book, and I can't think of which book it is that talks about it, that I wanted to give y'all a passage from that. What? I can't remember which book it was. Let me take a quick look in this and see if it's in here. Yeah, it is. So come on now. So this one I mentioned the other day. This is The World That Made New Orleans. Bang, bang, banger. There is a section here where, and you gotta remember, even though at the time a lot of Europeans did not like us, definitely treated us bad, the whole 3/5 of a man, all right? Egregious. But the interesting thing is, no matter the cognitive dissonance, in that situation of them convincing themselves that what they were doing was of goodwill in certain cases, they journaled about us, which is fascinating because you disapprove, you dislike, you have just unfounded hatred for these people and African people, but you still journal about them, you still write about them, and in the most profound ways you kept account of what was going on. And I don't know why. Maybe they thought that this stuff wouldn't go past their lifespan, but it's here. So it's like you actually documented what you saw from your own eyes, as quick as you want to dismiss who these people were, but you documented what you saw, which you provide some of the proof. So let me see. Maybe start here. As the religion of the Bible was made available to those that were enslaved, they made the most of it, performing it in their style, right? Again, you have your own Africanist aesthetics or aesthetics, right? So performing them, what you learn in the Bible in your own style, some certainty, viewing Christianizing as a path to emancipation, right? Because again, we're talking about gospel. And so if you're talking about what before it became gospel, it had different labels. It was sorrow songs, stories of the Bible, sorrow songs, became Negro spirituals. It had these different iterations, right? Different labeling. But the idea was the songs did a few things. One, it was coded language on how to escape. But more to the point, a lot of the gospel songs that were created were really singing about a better day. And most of the times the better day was either through death or freedom, which did not seem like it was ever going to happen. And so the way you get from gospel to blues is because throughout that time, when you listen to gospel songs, they're either coded message or they're about being with the Father, right? Being with the Creator. And if the idea is when we get free, things will get better, or when I'm with the Lord, things will get better, right? Again, most of that time was through death to get to the Lord. You then go into, once the Emancipation Proclamation happens, you figure, oh, we're free, it's going to get better. It got worse, which is where the blues started to thrive. It's not that the material was new. It was the approach to the material had taken a new tone. And then we get into the blues. Now, again, looking at the gospel, and as in Europe, it was diffused by singing. Unfortunately, we do not know what the early Black Psalms singing sounded like. but a tantalizing, if vague, description can come from a pair of letters written in 1751 by a Presbyterian evangelist in Hanover, Virginia, where he was asking for books. He was asking for Bibles, the Watts, Psalms, and hymns. I am rather important for a good number of these, as I cannot but observe that the Negroes above all human species, at least he saw them as human, the Negroes above all human species that I have ever knew have an ear for music and a kind of ecstatic delight in psalmody, singing the psalms. And there was no book to learn from, so they're just picking this stuff up. They're adding words that spoke to the agrarian practice of forced labor. And this is what ends up sparking what became known as gospel music. That goes on to develop into the blues. The blues is based in 12-bar blues. Earlier blues was 12-bar blues, which is where most people speculate the Dozens gets its name. And the Dozens, if you're not familiar with the Dozens is mama jokes. I know I've said this a million times. I'm saying it in a different way now. But when you look at this is the last video I'm gonna show, and we're gonna get out of here. When you think about the 12-bar blues, again, if you're on Instagram, you'll hear it. If you're on YouTube or you go to YouTube later, you can see it. This is a clip from a TV sitcom, Sanford and Son. This is with B.B. King, and they're doing the blues, and it's AAB structure, meaning in the blues, you give a line, you repeat the line, then you give the response. So it's a call and response. And it's not only is it AAB structure, but it's also the 12-bar blues, which 12-bar blues doesn't necessarily have to be an AAB structure. So here is that. Let's open that up a bit. And I'm going to count out the 12 in case y'all are not familiar with counting out 12-bar blues. Kristen, what up? Because of you, Kristen, I'm going to be done soon. So, all right. So again, I'm gonna count the 12 out so y'all can count with me. And even when you look at, if you're familiar with Led Zeppelin, quote unquote rock, that's supposed to be rock music, which rock music was created by, rock and roll was created by black folks as well. It became rock, which is something else. But Led Zeppelin's first album, even though they're considered rock, it's a blues structure. So if you look at the song, I think it's the Lemon song, it's 12-bar blues. It's so many songs of 12-bar blues is ridiculous. But just to see that comparison, and then we'll listen to 3 songs, and then we're done. So here we go. I'm gonna count them out for y'all. Listen for the timing. Oh, and listen for it so you, like, when you have ABAB, if my memory serves me right, when you have ABAB, that is one line, the first line rhyming with there's so many structures, but you can have the first line rhyming with the third line and the second line rhyming with the fourth line, or you can have the first line rhyming with the second line and the third line rhyming with the fourth line, or you can have all 4 lines rhyming, right? So you're going to hear how they're rhyming. This is also part of African retention as well. So here we go. I'm gonna count them out for y'all. Hear you. That's 2. Here we go again. And 1, 2, 3, 4. That's 2. We got.
Out at midnight, stay not till the dawn. And when she comes in line, I just take her in my arms and cross her.
That's 2. In the break, we got. Last two.
Went to the nightclub, bought champagne, rode in the taxi, I walked in the rain.
Last set.
Hey, mama, look at this.
Out in the backyard doing the twist. You didn't even have to stay the line and it rhymes. All right, we coming out of that. Oh, it's still going. All right. Sorry, it took a second for it to cut out. Now, he didn't even have to say that last rhyme, and we get the rhyme. Hey, mama, look at sis out in the backyard doing the twist. Right? So you get your first one. Hey, mama, look at sis out in the backyard, fourth line, doing the twist. But he don't even have to say it because we get it. So even when you think about, like, when you talk about rhyme, we can go back to 1941 with Cab Calloway, Airmail Special, and then look at the structure of that in the rhyme in terms of where the how the words rhyme. And it almost still kind of has a blues structure to it, but not necessarily. So he says, here's a boogie woogie, solid beat. Come on, you dancers, on your feet, beat feet. The winner gets the prize, as you all know, no. And we pick them by the speed in the class, they show, no show, right? Beat feet, no show. So the rhyming is there in these structures. They already exist. And part of that is what the reason people call it the dozens or believe it's called the dozens is because it was 12-bar blues. And it is in a rhyme cadence that you can find that in Africa. You can find that in Scotland with fleeting. Like, it's not like it was just in one place where people did this. So again, we're just looking at textures of things. But even when we look at, let me see if I can make this happen. Even when we look at, let me see if y'all can hear this, which you should be able to. This will be the last thing we do. I want y'all to be able to hear the music. So I don't know what's going on with the chat in YouTube, but if you're on Instagram, I'll go by y'all. If you can hear this, shout out to WC Handy, yes. If you can hear this, if you can hear this, throw a 1 in the chat. And so we're going to listen to some music really quick to think about the influence of and the retention of these Africanisms in American culture and how they show up and how they survive. And I'll give you a couple things to think about. All right, so here we go. This is the Southern Tones, and hopefully y'all can hear this. Let's see.
Oh, there's a man going around. Oh, yeah.
How many of y'all know where I'm
There's a
going?
man going around taking names. Oh, Lord. No, he took my mother's name.
All right. So this is kind of going to, so I'm doing this for two reasons. I'm doing this to offer people some information. Some of this information I've shared before, I'm sharing it in a little bit different way this time. And also I'm doing this for some of the people in these conversations that if they do look at this, I can guide them to this and like, here's some of the evidence. And so that's the Southern Tones. The name of the song is It Must Be Jesus. And that was an influence for Ray Charles to take what became known as secular and sacred here, because on the continent, Africa, there's no sacred and secular. It's all together. But somebody tried to say that, listening to an interview with James Brown, that James Brown created soul music. James Brown did not create soul music. The one is African. And even though he emphasized the one is actually African. Again, one of his drummers, Earl Palmer, who is from New Orleans, talked about the African influence on New Orleans drumming. But James creates the funk. Soul, Ray Charles, because he loved gospel music and he took the structure, the arrangement of gospel music, but he added quote unquote secular lyrics. So which gives us Ray Charles, I Got a Woman, that's based off of Must Be Jesus.
Well, I got a woman way over town that's good to me. Oh yeah, say I got a woman way over town, good to me. Oh.
We get that, right? And so y'all know where I'm going. Y'all know what follows that. But here's the thing to think about. Kanye West follows that with Gold Digger using Jamie Foxx's voice. So the idea, what we're talking about now is a discussion around the similarities, right? What's familiar. And so we have the Southern Tones, gospel. Ray Charles, soul. Kanye West, hip hop. What is the major theme in these three songs? The first song is talking about Jesus, right? I want y'all to see where I'm going, because I'm talking about how things get lost over time. The first song is talking about Jesus. The second song is talking about a woman. And the third song is talking about a gold digger. And we lose context over time because of the remixing, right? What happens to the overarching meaning and the emotion that is portrayed in each version? Now we're talking about the love of Jesus, love of a good woman, anger at a woman. You see what I'm saying? Like, this hip hop song is based in a structure of a gospel song that goes back to the plantation days. And lest we not forget, as long as the transatlantic slave trade was happening, you were bringing Africans. So when these people are on this FBA kick, I'm like, they didn't bring Africans just in the 1600s. They brought Africans all the way up into the mid to late 1800s. So they're bringing Africans from the continent. Some are acculturated through the Southern Islands and then they come here, and some are straight here. Very few, but straight here. But still that retention is there. And here we got a hip hop song that takes us back to the early 20th century that connects it to a gospel song in the early 20th century. Both of them in 1954. The Southern Tone is 1954, Ray Charles 1954, but the song actually comes out 1955. But that song is part of the plantation songs. And I didn't go through the spirituals. If you want to, you can get this book here, Spirituals and the Blues. It breaks a lot of stuff down. And this also, it doesn't talk about the AAB structure, but you can see the structure in the songs and the ones that they give you, like this. Leave your sheep and leave your lamb. Raise up, shepherd and follower. Leave your ills and leave your rams. Raise up, shepherd and follower. So that rams and lambs. So right, we see this. This is part of these old Negro spirituals, and I got a bunch of books on the steamboat songs that they would do. And so again, yeah, just looking at this connection. So of course, you'll find them. You find linguistic retentions. You'll find musical retentions. You'll find food. It's all there. And yeah, you can see it in this. So it is 7 o'clock. I said I wasn't going to do more than an hour. It is an hour. Thank you, Christian. And yeah, this will be posted up on YouTube, and check it out. This will probably be posted up on Instagram as well. But check it out in either area. Leave comments. My last thing is this. How many of you are interested in me doing new Zoom classes? If you're interested in me doing new Zoom classes, when this posts to Instagram and to YouTube, throw something in the chat. Let me know that you're interested in me doing more new Zoom classes that break this stuff down. I have movement classes coming. We're working in the summer to get the content together, so when the fall comes, y'all will be able to like fully immerse yourself in the theoretical practice of this and the practical element of it, as I'm breaking down a lot of steps from at least 4 different forms of dance, maybe 5, giving you all I got, breaking step by step, breaking it down. So yeah, I thank y'all for listening in. We're gonna get out of here. I hope this adds some information to your knowledge, and I'll see y'all next time we do this. Peace, peace, peace. Peace, peace, peace. Peace, peace, peace. Thank y'all for tuning in.